I want people to be able to stay safe and the system to stay safe under practical, real life situation. And real life abnormalities and emergencies are not like when your instructor covers your instrument and says, guess what, it's broken. And they define the issue for you and then they tell you what to do. Real life is like, hey, what's happening? Wait, did something happen? But let's talk about this.
To the whole lost comp thing.
Yeah.
Twice this summer, I was flying a ferry plane that had just gotten out of its annual, and twice now I've had complete electrical failure. The first time, the voltmeter didn't even work. It was like the in-op, so I don't know why that plane even got approved to go, but we lost all electrical coming over Donner, back into Grass Valley, which that plane's a Cessna 172 with electrical flaps, so we didn't have flaps either.
This is all VFR flight.
VFR.
Yeah.
And then the second time was flying down to Livermore, Bakersfield a couple weeks ago, and I know now to look at the volts meter on the Garmin or AV30s, whatever they are. But that one broke, or the whole system shut down probably like 10 miles out. I was to go around the Bakersfield Municipal Airport. I think it's just Delta Airspace, but I can see visually, so this was okay. You know? I did everything I could the first time to minimize electrical load, but it all shut off. It just, nothing. So that means the transponder didn't work, all the GPS equipment didn't work, flaps didn't work, lights didn't work, nothing was working electrically on the plane. In that case, that's definitely more of an emergency, but you can't even squawk 7700.
Under IFR, this is a serious emergency. Yeah, okay, so, all right, let's just talk real quick about, all right, you have two major components of your 172 or 152 or training aircraft electrical system. You have your battery and your...
Alternator.
Yes.
Just to say, the thing that sketched me out is the fuel tanks are electrical too. We were we landed with exactly within like 0.3 of what we thought we were.
Still nerve-wracking though, isn't it? Oh, no takeoff time, so important. Oh, and stick the tanks, yeah. Okay, so we have the battery and the alternator. Who can tell me the generalized idea? What's the alternator's job?
To maintain battery voltage.
DC.
All right.
Well, because she runs the A&P school, of course she's good.
She's pretty good back there. Okay. All right. So if for whatever reason your alternator loses its capability to recharge this battery or keep this battery charged, could be a number of reasons. Okay. Happened to a friend of mine on an IFR flight, and he was flying a twin, and it had a single alternator, and the alternator belt, the black rubbery belt. When you look inside the engine cowling in some airplanes, you see the black rubbery belt. That is not the belt that turns the prop. It is your alternator belt. It is driven, all right, from accessory gears. So when the prop spins and it spins other little gears, planetary gears, and it spins that, and then it produces electricity in the alternator, which then the aircraft electrical system sends to the battery, okay? So for instance, if that alternator belt were to snap, maybe it's old and not flexible anymore, or something like that, and just snaps in flight, okay? Well, guess what? All of a sudden, the alternator can't do anything. Alternator itself is fine, but the body itself is fine, but there's no belt to drive, okay? So then, in your 172 manual, let's just use a 172 as an example. Many of these light aircraft are very similar. There is a checklist. When you pull this checklist out, it will attempt to have you reset the system. Okay, it'll tell you how to do that. If that doesn't work, then it tells you reduce electrical load, land as soon as practicable, or practical. Okay. It may tell you your battery may last 30 minutes. This may be a lie. Okay, depends on how old, used, and abused the flight school battery is, how cold it is, everything else, okay? So, what they have you reduce your electrical load so that you can use the remaining battery power that you have left wisely and not just waste it all, okay? So he said, yep, we reduced electrical load and everything, But guess what? If you got a long way to go, like he did, across the Sierras, that battery might not last 30 minutes. Maybe you have longer to fly than 30 minutes. And then guess what? Your battery is then dead. And so then he did a great example of all the things that are not going to work on a lot of airplanes, okay? Flaps, if those don't work, is this a super huge emergency?
No.
How's it going to affect your landing distance for your runway? Sure. Okay. You're going to plan for that. If you normally use flaps on an approach, okay? Well, if you're a little high on your approach and you don't have your flaps available to you, what can you do? Slip. Sure. Great. Okay, so that's no big deal. IFR, VFR. But some of the other things he talked about. No radio. And wait a minute. How are we powering our navigation systems? Electricity. This is the big reason why a full electrical failure on an IFR flight plan, actually in the clouds, IMC, instrument meteorological conditions, is a serious emergency, okay? Now, because if you do not get down and navigate yourself to an area of either clearer weather or get on the ground via an instrument approach, you're going to lose your ability to do so as soon as that battery dies, okay? So if that were to happen, it is critical, critical, critical. The only thing more critical is actually being on fire that I can think of, okay? So if that were to happen, then you immediately need to say, in my pre-flight planning, I know where I can go to that's suitable with good weather and with a good approach, right? Or either or, right? So this is the importance of pre-flight planning, okay? So we are not just looking at departure, arrival, good to go, okay? No, because what if something bad happened in the middle, right? So quickly you can make a decision about a diversion, okay? So if this were to happen, your battery's not going to die immediately. So one of the required reports we need to make to ATC is any loss, under IFR, is any loss of navigational equipment, okay? Well, you're about to potentially lose navigational equipment, and you want them to know what's happening, right? Before it happens, if it happens, right? So they know what to expect, and so they can help you, okay? They're a great resource for you. So a wise pilot would get on the radio and say, hey, November 1, 2, 3, 4, I just experienced an alternator failure. I'm on battery power alone. I need to go, if you already have in mind where you want to go, request. I want to go to request clearance to this airport, this approach. Okay? If you're not sure, ask ATC. Okay? Say, this just happened. Do you have any good weather anywhere else where I can go VFR? That's within my fuel range. I've got 1 hour or whatever. Okay? They can help you. Okay? They're a resource, use them, okay? Ideally, you already know what you can do. Now, at that point, they may give you a special squawk code. Who knows? Maybe a different one. But then you are making them your partner, okay? So the important thing is get on the ground within 20 to 30 minutes. Juan.
This idea of diversions and diversion planning, when you're doing long instrument cross countries, like from LA to Sydney for 15 hours, we are constantly evaluating our diversion alternate airports and updating the weather on those diversionary alternate airports. So same thing in a small airplane.
Yep.
Keep checking your way out. What's your plan going to be on a multi-engine airplane? Where am I going to go if I lose an engine right now? Okay, now back to total electrical failure. The previous update on the Blanco Lirio channel was a hilarious episode where there was a completely mishandled total electrical failure episode, and his buddy in the right seat, who was not a pilot, filmed the whole thing. And he completely panicked. The pilot in the left seat, must have been a fairly new pilot, completely panicked. Is everybody clear on the fact that if you lose electrical power on your airplane, is there any effect on the operation of the engine? And why is that?
Because of magnetos, kind of like your lawnmower.
Yeah. Talk to the mechanic. It's the magnetos. They've got an independent source of ignition, right? So so the airplane's going to continue to fly and operate just fine. So if you're in VFR cleared conditions and uncontrolled airports, it's not that bad of an emergency as opposed to IFR and in the weather. Kellen's flying around all the time in a J3 Cub with no electrical system at all. Well, in this latest video update, this guy has a complete electrical failure in a Grumman. It completely panics and just dive bombs it back to the airport. No flaps in the Grumman. And ends up getting right behind a Cessna 182 on final of training school aircraft. And with the faster approach speed with no flaps, just continues to tailgate this 182 all the way into the landing until they both land on the runway, and then the Grumman just smashes right into the back of the 182. He could have just kept flying around. He could have done something completely different. He could have gone around. He could have took the grass. He could have took a taxiway. There was no reason for him to panic over the fact that the airplane would have continued to fly just fine. Yeah, the fuel gauges go to 0. That freaks you out. But if you noted your takeoff time and you had your fuel, so
Good example.
So don't panic. These are stressful situations that we're reviewing right now on these instrument procedures. Just doing the dang procedure with everything working correctly is stressful enough.
Yep.
You've got to be able to handle the stress under pressure.
Yeah. So let's talk from a VFR perspective. Even those of us who are IFR pilots fly under VFR most of the time. And those of you who are studying for your private pilot certificate, you're not allowed to fly IFR until you have that certificate, right? That rating, rather. So let's apply this total electrical failure scenario in VFR. Okay, it's not as long of a lesson, okay? Okay, so let's put this in scenario. I'm gonna try not to make you guys sick. I'm gonna zoom out a little bit, okay? Let's say you're here at Nevada County Airport and you are planning to go north, let's say to KRBL, okay? Right there, okay? Your VFR, here's KGU, Nevada County Airport. You take off and you experience, in shorthand terms, the total electrical failure that we just talked through ad nauseum. Okay, you're just in VMC conditions on a VFR flight. Now, why is the engine still running?
Magnetos.
Magic ignition, yes, totally. Okay, so engine still running, we're not falling out of the sky. Take a deep breath. Okay. What is the phrase? Aviate.
Navigate, communicate.
Yes, okay. Well, let's say this occurs and you are here over Oroville Seaplane Base. Okay, you're trucking northwest there. You're over Oroville Seaplane Base there, which is hard to see, but there's an anchor in the circle. When all this goes down, you follow your checklist, you reduce electrical load, and you're like, well, I got my battery still. I should land as soon as practical. And you're like, well, okay, KOVE, I guess.
But what's the average aircraft owner gonna do?
Yeah.
The average aircraft owner's gonna be, man, it's gonna cost me money going to Oroville. There ain't nobody there. I'm gonna turn around and go all the way back to my airport where my mechanic is.
Totally.
Work done.
Totally. So
Regs say?
the reg, well, and the aircraft operator's manual say different. Now, let's say that it's the standard aircraft owner. And before they get to KGU, their old, cold, abused battery dies. Now, they will not have flaps. We covered how to handle that. What else will they not have that they normally would utilize for a landing here?
Weather.
Okay, good. What about entering the pattern? Do you normally talk? Radios. Okay. We always talk on CTFs. But wait, is it actually required?
No.
it's not. Is it a really, really, really good operating procedure in practice? Yes. Okay. All right. So here's where it comes into play. If you made this decision, okay, you're like, oh, I'm no radio, then you need to be able to enter the pattern safely, which is where your AIM recommended traffic pattern entry procedures come into play. They're in the AIM. I'm not going to go into all of them, okay? Because they're a good operating practice because they allow you the best chance to visually acquire aircraft to see and avoid, okay? Which is the name of the game anywhere, but especially at non-towered fields, okay? So you can just enter the pattern, do all that, and land. Now, wait a minute. What if your nearest airport was Chico? You were here when it happened. You're like, well, I'm right next to Chico. I'm just going to go land at Chico. Hey, that's got this blue ring around it that says it's a Delta airspace. Wait, what do they have in a Delta airspace? You normally contact the tower, right? Well, let's just say your battery's probably not going to fail in 2 minutes. But okay, just do me a favor and pretend it did, okay? Well, let's say that you already were talking to the tower there. And they said, oh, sure, enter a left downwind for runway blah, blah, blah. You read that back and you do it, okay? Well, then guess what? It goes poof. And all of your nice little amber digits on your old school radio go dead. And you realize, no! Well, wait a minute. What should we do when we lose comms?
What's expected?
Wait, nobody said, I didn't trick you. Nobody said Squawk 7600. Good job.
We're not falling for that one.
Good job, you guys. Most people say, well, I should squawk. It's lost comms. But can you squawk? Because you have nothing electrically powered to squawk with. Good job, you guys. Okay, well, wait a minute. What are we supposed to do now? Does the FAA have any procedures to guide us in this situation? Look for light gun signals. Okay, so Juan, would you like to elaborate?
My first airplane didn't have a radio in it, and we had to go
do the light procedures, and I've forgotten the signals, and I was just thinking about this the other day. In fact, I got one of these old lights in the hangar up there to give to a museum, but inside of each tower there's this big old light signal thing like this, and it's got a green and red lights to it, and they can visually clear you to land using light signals from the tower, and you're looking for a steady green light for clear to land, and I don't remember all the rest of my light signals.
But the main point is green, go, red, don't land.
Yeah.
Right? You all can remember that, right? But that's why it's all on the knee board. I don't remember them all either, Juan.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
going to
good to have
admit,
them on the knee board.
both of us. So before I was talking to them, they knew I was inbound.
But what if you were on a VFR flight?
That's a great question. So they don't even know about you, but let's say there aren't all these other airports around, all right? In this modern day, a lot of us have ADS-B in on our iPad, which is on a separate battery, is it not, from a little device such as mine, a Sentry or the Stratus's or other things, right? Which are, let's say those two things have plenty of battery power. And if you were on a VFR flight, when this happened, then you might, if you look at Chico and you see what looks like a bee's nest of traffic, if you have an hour's left of fuel, do you need to enter there right away? Would that be the best idea? Maybe not, right? However, what if you were, there's verbiage that refers to the nearest suitable airport, okay? So Chico might be the most suitable, but what if you were to look around and see, well, this airport here, oh, the runway's long enough, the lines with the wind fine, and it's not towered, and I don't see anybody on traffic there, ADS-B. That doesn't mean there's no one there, right? Because not everybody has ADS-B out. But I would logically conclude that there's probably less traffic here than here. Then you might say to yourself, I'm going to do what I think is the safest, least complex thing and enter the pattern at this non-towered field and land. However, Let's say these were gone. None of these existed, all right? Like where I'm from in Alaska, there isn't an airport every 10 miles. It's more like 200 miles, okay? So I don't have enough fuel to go 200 miles. If I only have one airport, then luckily the FAA gave us a way to enter this traffic pattern, even a towered one, safely. So recommendations are fly well overhead traffic pattern altitude. Fly right over the top, okay? Wag your wings. Get attention any way you can. Meanwhile, you're scanning like crazy for traffic. Okay? Because you got no other way to do it, see and avoid, okay? Now, while you're doing all this, you're looking at the tower. While seeing and avoiding, you're busy. And then you see some green lights. Yes, there you go. Utilize the passenger. Good mention, Juan. Right? So then if you see with all that, okay, some green lights. Oh, I see green from the tower. Then, okay, they know I'm here. Okay? Then look for traffic and do an AIM recommended standard traffic pattern entry, which we'll not go into a full lesson about. But you see, by being well above traffic pattern altitude, it's your best chance of looking down and seeing everybody, okay? And staying clear, but getting the tower's attention, okay?
What if you didn't talk to them?
Then you can still do the same thing.
Yeah,
So
that's
you'd
the
break the
procedure that you
Yep.
do.
Go.
Yep.
everything.
Correct.
Even if they're like, we don't know who the heck this is.
Correct. Now, here's one thing. If this was to happen at night under VFR, let us say you are going, this is not a very good screen, but let's say you are going to this airport and you see that it has L asterisk next to it, okay? Ignore all this. This is the only part I want you to pay attention to. L asterisk. What does that mean? Oh, like here at Nevada County Airport. So let's say it is medium intensity runway lighting, Merle. How many clicks on the CTAF? 5. Hey, this happened to my friend when he lost his alternator belt under IFR. Oh, and I think it was international too. In a light twin, crossing the border from Canada down to Idaho. So he did all the things, AVF, MEA, but guess what? He lost his alternator belt. And there was no good place in the Canadian Rockies where he was. So he had to exercise his PIC emergency authority, okay? Once he knew, I'm gonna run out of battery, weather's not good enough anywhere, plus there's no alternates where the weather's good enough, given this situation, okay? So, he planned ahead. He said, I know I'm going to lose my battery, so what's my plan prior to this? So he was an old school gentleman. He'd flown everything from the Australian military to heavies across oceans to little experimental aircraft, and he knew pilotage and dead reckoning. And he also had his iPad, right? And his Sentry device, okay? So he navigated over the top of Lake Coeur d'Alene. There was no good weather anywhere around. Was the reason he did this. No good weather anywhere, okay? He was like, I got to get to an airport where I can land. I'm running out of gas, okay? So he navigated over Lake Coeur d'Alene. This is real scary. You don't want to do this, okay? But he had his last known altimeter setting, right, from his iPad. And he put it in there, and he said, okay, altitude at Lake Coeur d'Alene is whatever, 2,000 feet. And he said, I'm going to go right over the top of Lake Coeur d'Alene, and I'm going to slowly.
Was he still in the soup at this point?
He was in the soup.
Ooh.
It was really bad. But he was about to run out of gas.
Ooh.
It was bad juju. So this is super high emergency. You do not want to do this. This is not a recommended procedure, but he saved his life by doing this, okay? And he descended over Lake Coeur d'Alene, and he set himself a bottom altitude. He said, I will not descend lower than 3,000. And based upon his pre-flight weather briefing, he thought that should be good enough because it was supposed to be VFR at Coeur d'Alene Airport itself. So, sure enough, he popped out into the clouds. Did I mention this was at night?
Oh my god.
This is worst possible
case.
It is. Now, Coeur d'Alene Airport doesn't have a tower and it has a CTAF with like MERLs or HURLs. Can you turn those on at night without? No. So I don't know what he did. I honestly don't know. I mean, I can't remember what he told me about that part of the story, but clearly he landed and he did not die that day, okay? But when I heard my old friend Glenn's story, it really made me think, wow, I don't think I would have done as well as he did, given that set of considerations, all those things that happened. And so the reason I tell that story is for you guys to know how one person handled an absolute, one of the most serious emergencies you could ever run into, and he lived, okay? So that's the point behind that story. Is that a thing that you should plan on doing? Absolutely not. You fly a proper instrument approach, all that. But when it all hits the fan, he aviated, navigated, and communicated, okay? But I got off on that story because lights. If you're VFR at night, you might consider, well, I do want to go to this towered airport because they can turn the lights on for me. Right? If you have a total electrical failure at night and you need to land at a lit runway.
You get their attention.
Yep.
Which would be hard because you're not lit at that.
Yes. But there are sources of basic radar return targets. And so eventually, word would get around in the air traffic control community and be like, hey, what's going on?
Yeah. They're going to be like, who are you and how are you doing this?
Exactly.
So something I've been carrying around with me a lot more lately, and if you're ferrying old junky airplanes around, you definitely should carry your handheld little radio with you. And I found that handheld works better in the 310 than the actual radio in the 310.
Great point, Juan. Great point. Yeah.
And now you got a battery backup. Then you got a cell phone also. Maybe you can get a cell phone range and you get a hold of somebody. Hey, turn the goddamn lights on for me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
That just happened at my school on Sunday. We had a CFI and a student lose full electrical, and they just called because they were low enough, and they said, hey, we're coming in.
Awesome.
Can you do radio calls for us? Can you come out on the runway, look for us, and do radio calls?
Awesome.
And
So that's what we're going for in aviation, is application and correlation level of learning. What's the point? So that you know what to do in particular situations based upon the learning and experience that you've had, right? So that you can stay safe, right? That's the point. So you're gonna start with a lot of rote memorization, right? And then you're gonna go to a level of understanding, and then you're gonna go to application. Oh, now I kind of know what to do in this situation, right? And then your correlation, which is the final thing of saying, oh, I can apply what I learned over here and over here and over here, which is what we just did with this whole electrical failure scenario, right? Because we combined a whole lot of regulations and other things that we've learned prior to put in a new scenario, okay? So hopefully this helped you guys with context, why we do certain things, where to go to research your resources, okay? It's okay if on your check ride you got to look something up, but ideally you've done a ton of research on your own in advance. So on the check ride, if you're like, well, I can't quote you the answer, but I know it's right here on this tab. Do you know what? Most examiners are going to say, no, that's good. Okay? All right? Because that means that you've read it, right? And so the whole point of it is, of course, safety. And of course, we really mean it. And the more you know you don't know. And that applies in life, especially applies in flying. Okay? So all of these ratings and certificates we get is just the beginning. It's the tip of the iceberg, right? It's the absolute minimum that we need to know. All right, that's why we have such, strong standards in the ACS, the Airman Certification Standards for passing check rides, right? Because it's the bare minimum to get out there and start practicing and gaining experience safely, okay? And from that, it's a diving board to then gain experience. And then you come along 27 years later, and I think about the things that I didn't know when I was 18. I think, oh man, wow. right? And it's going to happen to all of us, right? And so start out with really broad personal minimums, meaning don't ever put yourself in a situation where you have only one backup plan or one out. That's not enough, okay? Try to think about it as I'm going on, for instance, a VFR flight or an IFR flight, doesn't matter, okay? And I need 3 outs, okay? Like 3 alternate plans if things don't go according to plan, at least. If along the flight or in your pre-flight planning, you see, oh, option 1 went away, option 2 went away, you never want to get to option 2 going away, okay? Because option 3 could go away and you're so quick. And then you got no options left. So try to think about super conservatively, okay? I got 3 outs. If one of them leaves me and is no longer an out, I'm landing this plane, okay? And that's a very, very simplistic way of talking about decision making as you gain your experience. And because there's so many things that can get us that are unknowns or that we don't know about yet, right? So I guess that's what I have to leave you with on that account. Thank you for being here.